next talk by Vidwan Manikandan Iyer ji. Namaste Manikandan ji, thank you for taking time for joining the session. Manikandan Iyer ji will be speaking on the topic Sureshwaracharya's insights on Svayam Jyoti Brahmana of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Just a brief introduction. Sri Manikandan Iyer ji is a banker by profession and a Sanatani by practice. He has had the rare fortune of studying various Shastras in a traditional manner from a very tender age. He has studied Vyakarana from Vidwan Sri Tilak Rao ji. He has traditionally, he started his study of Vedanta in a traditional manner, first under Guru Brahmashri Sri Sridhar Sharma ji, and later under Mahamahopadhyaya Shastraratnakara Vidwan Sri Mullai Vasal Krishnamurti Shastrigal. And he has also studied Tarka Shastra from Vidwan Sri Navin Hollaji of Sringeri, who is one of the senior most disciples of Jagadguru Shankaracharya Sri Sri Bharati Tirtha Swamigal of Sringeri Sharda Peetam. We are very fortunate to have you here with us. Please go ahead and start your session.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha. Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Asha Surashi Bhavadangavalli Bhasai Vadasi Grita Dugdha Sindhum Mandasmitair Nindita Sharadendum Vande Ravindasana Sundaritvam Vaktaramasādhyayame Vanitya Saraswati Swartha Samanvitasit Nirastadustarka Kalanka Panka Namamitam Shankaramarchitangrim Sadatmadhyana Niratam Vishayebhyah Paranmukham Naumi Shastreshu Nishnatam Chandrasekhara Bharati Srimad Shankara Deshikendra Kalite Dharma Vyavasthapake Punye Pitha Chatushtaye Timahitam Shri Sharada Pithikam Arudhasya Samasta Shastra Nichaye Panditya Sima Jushaha Vidyatirtha Jagadguro Mama Guru Shri Padukame Gatihi Kumbhavam Samupeyushi Bhagavati Kim Bharati Rajate Kim va sadhana samhritan dhritavapur jnanam samindhe param Ityullikhya savismayam kritadhiyo dhyayanti yam bharati tirthasya jagadguroh kushalada Shri Padukame gatihi Kumbharati samudbhutan Shashimauli prapujakan Shri Shankara Swaruparyan Naumi Shastra Visharadan Sarvashruti Shirodbhuta Samudbhasita Murtaye Vedantambuja Suryaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ashailadudaya Tatasthagirito Bhasvadyasho Rashmibihi Vyaptam Vishwamanandhakaram Bhavate Yasyasma Shishyiridam Aradhyana Gabastibif Pratihataschandrayate Bhaskaraha Tasmai Shankara Bhanave Tanumano Vagbhirnamasyat Sada Vishwam Maya Mayatvena Rupitam Yat Prabodhitaha Vishwancha Yat Swarupantam Vartika Charyamashraye. The first sloka that we quoted, Ashaila Dudaya Tatastha Giritaha, that sloka is composed by Vartikacharya, Sri Sureshvaracharya, on his guru, Adi Shankaracharya. The second sloka that we quoted, Vishwam Maya Mayatvena Rupitam Yat Prabodhataha Vishwancha Yat Swarupantam Vartikacharyam Ashraye, says we bow down to that Sureshwaracharya, the Vartikacharya, who wrote a lucid gloss or Vartika which upholds the Advaita Siddhanta's penultimate truth, that the illusion which pervades the world is embedded nowhere but in the mind alone. With this, we will enter the topic. Coming to the topic, what is Vartika? There is a definition that the Shastrajnas have given for Vartika. that says Ukta Anukta Duruktadi Chinta Yatra Pravartate Tam Grantham Vartikam Prahuhu Vartikagna Manishinaha. I will repeat. Ukta Anukta Duruktadi Chinta Yatra Pravartate Tam Grantham Vartikam Prahuhu Vartikagna Manishinaha. Why am I stating this? You will know it a while from now. The definition is Ukta. Ukta, which means that which has already been stated. And Vartika adds more emphasis on those important things. Ukta. Anukta, which means na uktaha anuktaha, that which Bhagavatpadacharya has not commented upon. In the sense that nothing much has been commented upon that particular phrase or that particular shloka is anukta. The third characteristic, which the definition says, is durukta. The vyutpatti for this word, durukta, is actually dushtam uktam duruktam. Is a vyutpatti for this. And the vachyartha appears to be that it has been badly stated, badly commented upon. But in my honest opinion, it cannot be taken in that way, or it cannot be inferred in that way. So, in my opinion, it should be taken as na dushta uktihi, apitu dukhenaya uktihi, athava kvachit duravagahya uktihi. Anything that has been stated with much difficulty, or because one of the saints writes that Bhashyoktishu dushtatva abhavat. There cannot be anything bad, or there cannot be anything dushta that has been stated in the Bhashya. So the durukta cannot be taken as dushtamuktam duruktam, but instead you will have to take it as duravagahya uktihi duruktihi. So, okay. So this is the definition for Vartika. So what we intend to do is we will enter the topic first, and then I will let you know what we and how do we intend to cover this. See, we have just selected the topic of Svayam Jyoti Brahmana of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and this prakarana comes in the 4th chapter and 3rd Brahmana. So, this chapter is a conversation that takes place between Yajnavalkya and Janaka. See, I will give you the entire gist of this Brahmana so that it becomes easy for you to appreciate when I quote the Vartika. The entire gist of this Brahmana is that Janaka asks Yajnavalkya as to who is the light to this Purusha. So he replies that the sun is the light. It is through the sun that we engage in activities, we perform the karma through the sun. So he asks, what happens if the sun is set? He says it is the moon. So he asks, what if the sun and the moon are also set? Then he says, it is through the fire. Or for our better understanding in today's context, it is the electricity and other things. Back in those days, since it was fire, he has quoted there as fire. And next he continues the question. He asks, even when the fire is absent, what happens? He says the transactions or the activities happens through speech. You hear a shabda or you hear a vak, you move towards that vak or you direct your thoughts towards that vak. So he states that it is through that speech. And he continues, even when the speech ceases to exist, what remains, that is shining forth brightly. He says it is that Atma Jyoti which prompts him to engage, and it is through that Jyoti, that light, which he engages and he performs everything. Okay, this is the very gross gist of the entire chapter. And there are many Purvapakshas and Siddhantas that come in between, but I'm just tailoring or cutting out all the other unwanted things and just giving you the gist. See, this is a very big chapter. Okay, and often this chapter is not touched upon. See, whenever anyone is talking about Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it usually translates, or people mostly choose the conversation between the Maitreyi and the Yajnavalkya. So, since this is rarely touched, so we have chosen this particular chapter. And how do we intend to do this talk is seeing the Vartika through the previously stated definition due to paucity of time. We will not have time to cover even around 10 to 15 shlokas, because each shloka is so profound and contains so many ideas within that. So what we intend to do is, like we stated the definition of Ukta, Anukta and Durukta, Chinta yatra pravartate. So using that Ukta, Anukta and Durukta, we will try to see what Vartikacharya has done in this Svayam Jyoti Brahmana Prakarana. Okay. So we will see one shloka for one, or maybe two shlokas for each characteristics. And this is in no particular order at all. This does not go as in one particular order as a flow, but we have chosen this all these shlokas as per the definition. Okay, now we shall enter the text. See, in that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhaga, the second shloka is as follows: Yajnavalkya kim jyotirayam purusha iti aditya jyotihi samrad iti hovacha aditye naivayam jyotishaste palyate karma kurute vipalyate ti evameva etad Yajnavalkya is the second shloka in that Svayam Jyoti Brahmana Prakarana. Here there is if you see the shloka, there is a word that is Kim Jyotirayam Purushaha. There is a word that comes in the first line, Yajnavalkya, Kim Jyotirayam Purushaha. So the following shlokas that we are going to quote now actually enumerates the intent behind that actual word, that Kim Jyotirayam Purushaha. Okay. So Bhagavad-padacharya, when he comments this, he says, Kim Jyotirayam Purusha iti, Kimasya Purushasya Jyotihi, Ena Jyotisha Vyavaharati, Soyam Kim Jyotihi, Ayam Prakritaha Karyakarana Sanghata Rupaha, Shiraf Panyadiman Purushaha Prichyate. Okay, he says this. Bhagavad-padacharya quotes this. See, now the beauty of Vartikacharya, he says, this shloka, which is 18th shloka in the Svayam Jyoti Brahmana Prakarana, he says, Vyavahartum ashaktoyam deho mritpindavat swayam paratantra vyavahritihi swatejadya swabhavataha prithivya dyavasayam swayam jyotir anugrahan karmasanadi kurute tasmacha palasangatihi eta eva mato Prakshi Yajnavalkyam Naradipaha Kinjyotirayamityevam Pragjyotir Bhubutsaya. This is the shloka, three shlokas which correspond to that. One word, Kim Jyotirayam Purushaha iti. So he says, first shloka, Vyavahartum Ashaktoyam Mritpindavat Swayam Paratantra Vyavahritihi Swate Jadyaswabhavataha. He says the body in itself is incapable of doing any activities or any karma or any transactions, and it is just like a ball of mud. He says Mritpindavat. Okay, but it is through Paratantra, meaning uses the external force to work. He says there Paratantra Vyavahritihi. Okay, and Anandagiri Tikacharya, when he comments upon this word Paratantra Vyavahritihi, he says Paradhina Vyavaharavati Jadatvat Rathadivati iti. And Yajnavalkya is asked by Janaka regarding the Jyoti through which all of us transact, work and desire for fruit of action. See here, the first shloka, there are so many things to say, but I will cut it short. Vyavahartum ashaktoyam deho mritpindavat swayam paratantra vyavahritihi swate jadya swabhavataha. he says this body is ashakta for doing any karma. Vyavahartum ashaktoyam. Deho mritpindavat swayam, we have explained. Paratantra vyavahritihi swate jadya swabhavatah. See, for you to understand this, you will have to do the vichara here. Vichara in such a way that what is the difference between a dead body and what is the difference between me? I am also the same. I am this body. There is another body that was talking to me a while ago, but that body which was talking, having a relationship with me, is now lying down there, does not talk anything, does not utter any word. There are relatives that are crying there, but does not respond to anything. Then what was that Jyoti, or what was that thing that was inside that dead body that was actually connecting everything? So he takes us directly into that import of the Shastra. He says that Deha is mithya, is jada by in itself. It does not have anything to work on its own. It is through this Atma Jyoti which is inside that makes, or that it is through that Atma Jyoti that any body or any upadhi works. Without that Atma Jyoti, nothing actually can exist and everything becomes inert. He takes this directly to the purport of the entire essence of that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Svayam Jyoti Brahmana, and this can be stated as a classic example of Anukta, that which has not been stated. See, Bhashya asks the question, Kim Jyotir Ayam Purushaha iti, because there is there in the Bhashya, and it states that it has been referring to the person with a gross body. See, Ayam Prakritaha Karyakarana Sanghata Rupaha Shiraf Panyadiman Purushaha Prichyate. But Vartika Karacharya goes one step ahead and he says, Vyavahartum Ashaktoyam Deho Mritpindavat Swayam Paratantra Vyavahritihi Swatejadya Swabhavatah. Okay? And continuing, he says, Kim, see in the Bhashya, now coming back to Bhashya, without Bhashya, if you just read the Vartika, you cannot appreciate Vartikacharya's contribution. See, in the Bhashya, there is Kimayam Savayava Sanghata Bhahyena Jyotirantarena Vyavaharati Ahosvit Swa Avayava Sanghatam Swa Avayava Sanghatam Adhyapatina Jyotisha Jyotishkaryam Ayam Purusho Nivartayati Ityetad Abhipretya Prichati. So there is a question where he asks if this Purusha who is working, who is alive, who has this Jyoti inside him, is he working because of the Jyoti that is outside him, or is it the Jyoti that is inside him? Bhagavad Padacharya there in this Bhashya uses this as one sentence. But the beauty is Vartikacharya splits that into two questions. Okay, very beautiful. He says in the 22nd and the 23rd shloka, he says, Kim swa avayava sangata bhinna jyoti rekena jyotisha vyavaharyeshaha asamhatena pumaniti kimva tad viparitena jyotishetyabhidiyatam kinchato yadi namaivam shrinvato yat prasidhyati. So, like we said, he's splitting those two questions. And he says, Kim Swavayava Sangata Bhinna Jyoti Rekena, which means the Karyakarana Sangata body, which he's asking here, regarding the Jyoti of this Purusha, is this Jyoti outside the Swavayava Sanghata, which means the gross body, or opposite or extreme of that, tad viparitena. In the 23rd shloka, he uses this word, tad viparitena, which means if it is inside of the Karyakarana Sanghata Sharira. See here, the first word talks about Kim Swavayava Sanghata Bhinna Jyotihi. Is it outside the Swavayava Sangata Binnaha? Is it Swavayava Sangata Binnaha? Is it outside that? Or Kimva Tad Viparitena? meaning that is it opposite to that Swavayava Sangata Bhinna, which means it is it inside you, which is the light through which this Manushya, this Purusha is working, is doing the karma and is transacting. So this is an extreme interesting, he's just giving a gist, or he's giving us an interesting peep into Ukta, or what is already told in the Bhashyam corresponding to the definition of Vartika. See here, like I said, Bhashya asks this as one single sentence. Vartikacharya beautifully splits that question into two and asks and makes it very clear. So, in my honest opinion, Taittiriya Upanishad, Bhashya Vartika can also be read through some translations and other things. But for Brihadaranyaka Bhashya Vartika, you need extreme preparation to know what is the intent behind each question and what is he elaborating on. So now we will continue. Vartikacharya continues. He says, Swato buddham swatah shuddham swato muktam niratmika avicharita samsiddhihi avidya lingate katham sarvajyoti uparame kim jyoti riti chodite atmaivasti janakam yagnavalke pyuvachaha. Now he is condensing around 85th and 86th shloka, and he says he is explaining the nature of the Atma in very simple terms. Now, the Yajnavalkya gives this message of Vedanta that the Atma is ever known, or it is making itself known always. It is Swayam Prakasha, it is Swata Siddhaha. Swata, he uses the word there, Swato Buddham, Swata Shuddham. Okay, he says it is already known, it is ever pure, and it is always making itself known, or rather, because of which everything else is known, and it is already liberated. Swato muktaha. He says, Swato muktam niratmika. It is already liberated, meaning everyone is already that Atma Swarupa themselves, and because of this adhyasa or ajnana, we are not able to abide by that or know that nature. So he uses this word Swato muktam niratmika avicharita samsiddhihi avidya lingate katham. And he says, when you do the inquiry of this Brahman, where is avidya, or how can avidya even exist? Because in the same Bhashya, he says, Tamah prakashavat viruddha swabhavayoho, and like it is said in the Bhashya, he says, because it is swato buddham, it is ever effulgent, how can avidya, which is in the form of darkness, ever exist in front of this swato buddham, swatah shuddham, swato muktam niratmika, avicharita samsiddhihi, avidya lingate katham. And he says, Sarvajyoti Ruparame Kim Jyotihi iti chodite Atmaivasti Janakam Yagnavalke Pyuvachaha. And he again condenses this entire gist of this, and he says Atma is the Jyoti through which all other Jyotis are known. Because Atma does not have this Anavastha dosha where it needs another light for it to shine forth, even when all the light ceases to exist. He says Sarva Jyotir Uparame, when they cease to exist or they are shut. Kim Jyoti Riti Chodite, what is that light that shines forth? Chodite, when the vichara is done. See, even when you are sitting in the dark room, okay, when there are no lights around you also, there is that one light which is shining within you that says that I exist. Okay, Kim Jyoti Riti Chodite, when you do the vichara of that, Atmaiva asti janakam yagnavalkyo pyuvachaha. He says, oh my dear Janaka, that Atma alone exists. When you do the vichara, when all the lights are shut, or rather, what is that light which makes us know that all other lights exist? Say the sun, moon, fire, speech, all the things that we know is because of this, that Jyoti which is inside us, and that Jyoti never ceases to exist. He says, Sarva Jyotir Uparame Kin Jyoti Riti Chodite Atmaivasti Janakam Yajnavalkye Pyuvachaha, and he says that it is that Atma Jyoti that is shining forth even when all the lights are off. This example, to make it more practical, you sitting in the dark room knowing that you exist. Okay, continuing, I will finish quickly. He says, Yatha prakashayatyekaha kritsnam lokamimam ravihi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam vyanakti tatha smritihi. He says, just like there is that just single sun that when rises, lights up the entire world, the entire earth. He says, this Atmas Surya, when it rises, it lights up everything, not within, but it lights within and also around that. He says, Yatha prakashayati ekaha kritsnam lokamimam ravihi suryaha kshetram kshetri tata kritsnam vyanakti tatha smritihi. He says this, and this can be an example of durukti or duravagahya uktihi, where something which is very, very, very complex that is stated in the Bhashya, Vartika Acharya condenses that or makes it very simple and helps us to understand. So in case you see the Bhashya, or if the Bhashya is very tough for someone to understand, and if he happens to read this Vartika portion, it will become very clear to him. And Anandagiri Tikacharya does not comment, the highlight is Anandagiri Tikacharya does not comment upon this Vartika, and he says, Tatra Bhagavad Vakyam Pramanayati, and he finishes this. So this is a very good classic example of Durukti or Duravagahya, and that is how Yajnavalkya teaches, or rather shows Janaka. He does not teach, but in that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is known that Yajnavalkya teaches Janaka shows Janaka his own state, which is ever effulgent Atma to Janaka, and that is how this Prakarana in that Svayam Jyoti Brahmana Prakarana in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad ends. So, being very honest, we have not made any justice due to paucity of time. And this Brihadaranyaka Bhashya Vartika in itself is a very deep study that requires years to understand the exact meaning, exact purpose with which Vartikacharya has written this. Like always, there is always this notion if Mandana Mishra was Sureshwaracharya or not, and other things. In my honest opinion, all those confusions, all those controversies or whatever are can be reserved to historians whose only work is to do research on such things. For people who are interested in Shastra, who are interested in knowing the truth, who want to know this truth, for them it is this Svayam Jyoti Brahmana Prakarana and Vartikacharya, be it Mandana Mishra or Sureshvaracharya, is very important, and the confusion, all those things exist. It is ideal for a sadhaka to keep it aside as historians work and move forward with the truth. With this, I humbly thank Nitinji for this lovely opportunity that he has given me to talk about this, and I will offer this at the holy feet of Mahasannidhanam and my Guru, and I will end this talk. Thank you so much, Sridharji.
Thank you very much, Manikandanji, for a very insightful talk and sharing the insights from the great Acharya's writings. Thank you very much for making time for this session.